Okay, so I'm going to show you how I retouch portraits. We're going to start out with this completely unedited image of this father and son. We're going to start out by zooming in, and I like to work on the hair first, kind of build up to the skin if I know the skin's going to be the most challenging part. So I'll take my patch tool and select that stray hair and move my circle to an area that has the exact same or as close as possible color tone and texture. And you see whenever I do that, it completely takes away that stray hair. Same thing here, same thing here. And you can kind of see where it created this ghost of random pixel data that's kind of smeared in color. So we're going to take our clone stamp and we're going to bring it over here. I'm going to hold down the Alt key and select that color. And I'm just going to kind of paint it lightly over that. I'm using 55% opacity, and that allows me to maintain kind of a realistic edge. I'm going to come over here, select Alt again, or hold down Alt to select another color. Here we go. And you can see a major difference already in his stray hairs. There's one over here. We can completely remove it with just the clone stamp if we don't want to use the patch tool. It's completely up to you. There's 1,000 ways to do everything in Photoshop. I'm going to check his hairline. I don't see any other stray hairs. I'll take my hand tool just to kind of move around a little quicker. Now baby Knox has a stray hair right here. We'll use the patch tool to get rid of that. There we go. Take my clone stamp. You can see a couple of stray hairs down here on the back of Dad's knuckles. It's got some finger hair there, which is totally natural and normal, but kind of distracting. So we're going to take that out using the clone stamp. Okay. Now it's time to work on skin. So we're going to take our patch tool again, and we're just going to kind of start out with, actually before we do anything, go to your layers and right click on the background and select duplicate layer, hit OK, and that's going to give you kind of a safety net so that if you don't like what you do, you can always go back and remove that second layer or decrease the opacity of it. So back to where we were. We're going to patch tool just the dark spots of his skin. Now that looks extremely unrealistic, so we're going to hold down Control Shift and hit F. That's going to pull up our fade bar. If you're working on a Mac, it's probably going to be Command. And we're going to lower the opacity to about 49% or so. And you can see that makes it a little bit more realistic. I like to do that a couple of times if it needs it, wherever the skin looks more uneven. Got some uneven skin tone right there. And I basically just do this all over the portrait. Wherever it needs to be. Now I'm bringing the data, my patch tool over here to collect data from that bright spot because it's smooth and it's similar in skin tone. You can do whatever you want, but if you want it to look realistic, you need to kind of go for same texture, same color. You can see it's making a world of difference already. Now we don't want the baby to look like a plastic doll, so we're not going to completely get rid of the wrinkles on his forehead. They're really sweet. All babies are sweet. You can just kind of tell what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to get rid of any bizarre looking textures or changes in skin tone. And all of this is going to vary from image to image based on lighting conditions and the texture of the skin and really what you're up against. So we're going to do this all over. Okay. Got a little bit of skin tone changing over there on his cheeks. See a major difference already. Okay, now he's got a squishy little line here under his eye. That's pretty natural, but we still want to kind of just decrease it a little bit so it's less distracting. You don't want to completely take away facial features, you just want to kind of minimize the distractions. So like we want to keep those wrinkles in there, maybe just tone them down a little bit. Okay. You can see there's a shadow over here under his mouth. It's kind of causing slight visual distraction. Good thing about babies is that they're pretty easy to retouch. Okay, we got a hot spot right here under his nose that's bothering me. It might not bother you. My client probably would never notice it, but I'm gonna tone it down just because I can. Okay, so before, after. All right, over here to his arm, you'll notice he's got a little bit of redness going on. Some shadows. Tone that down. This little guy had to eat every 25 minutes during his session. So his session took all day pretty much. But he was so worth it. Okay, so we just toned down that shadow that was there, again, before, after. We're going to come over here and take a look at his belly. He had kind of like an allergic reaction to something that day, it seems like. So we just want to go in and kind of smooth all of that out. He was a happy little guy, just constantly hungry. He's also only 4 days old, so can't really fault him. And the more you do this, the faster you'll get. This is just taking a long time because, well, he's got a lot of skin that needs retouching that normally doesn't on a newborn, but also I'm going pretty slow just so that you can kind of watch how I'm doing this. There are actions that you can use that will completely smooth over the skin all over in the image. I don't recommend using those all the time. I like to use them a little bit once I've done the initial custom retouching. Oops, I went full screen. Anyways, but I don't like to do it with, I don't like to just run the action and then leave it be. I like to do the custom retouching and then use the action just to kind of help smooth out anything I might have missed. Otherwise it can look fake. Okay, Let's see here. This is looking a lot better. This sweet picture is going in a 12 by 12 inch double thick page album printed by H&H Color Labs. It's a $1,200 album. It's also going to have 80 images in it. Okay, so let's see here if I can get it out of full screen. Okay, so let's look at before and after. Before, after. The baby looks great. Let's move on to Dad. So we're going to do the same thing with Dad. We're going to select that rough skin area, use our patch tool. So far, I've only used the clone stamp and the patch tool, and of course fade, which again, to pull at fade with your keyboard is Control Shift at the same time and then hit F on your keyboard. Now you can very easily over retouch a man and make it look like he's wearing makeup, and they do not like that. So again, that's another reason to have 2 layers and work on the top layer. That way if you look at it whenever you're done and you think, dang, he's a little too smoothed out, you can always go down on your opacity and make it look more realistic. Okay. I'm just about finished. Almost. I keep using his forehead for the source of my new pixel information with my patch tool because it's very smooth. At least it is now. And you have to be careful though, because if you share the same pixel data too much throughout the image, sometimes you can cause it to have some empty pixels, which in another tutorial I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay. This is probably a lot more than what some photographers do for their images, but I've been doing this for about 8 years, and I found that it is the best way to retouch and post-process any images, at least for portraits. It's going to be a little bit different if you're just, working on scenics or industrial shots, commercial, real estate, things like that. Of course, you're not going to have skin to retouch, but if you're interested in portraits, I highly recommend the patch tool for cleaning up skin. We've almost finished. Now he didn't want me to remove this mole, so I'm just going to tone it down. But we're going to actually leave it because it's part of who he is, and he did not request that we remove it. He actually requests that we leave it at least a little bit. Okay, so now, before, after.